Hi everyone, welcome to this channel. Today, we're going to dive deep into something that's often puzzling but rarely explained in detail. Have you ever felt like you're being watched, even when you're alone? In this episode, we're going to uncover one of the creepiest stories you've never heard before. Deep within an ancient forest untouched by time, lies a remote village only accessible through a narrow trail that vanishes during winter. Few know of its existence, and those who once lived there have long remained silent. The village once housed a devout religious community. At its heart stands a Gothic-style stone chapel, over 3 centuries old. But now, the church is sealed tight, its windows boarded up, its iron doors rusted yet somehow intact, as though untouched for decades. Locals refer to it as the night chapel, because every full moon, candlelight is seen flickering behind the boarded windows, despite the place being completely abandoned. In the 19th century, tragedy struck during Christmas Eve Mass. The entire congregation vanished. No bodies. No struggle. Just the lingering scent of incense and strange scratch marks covering the altar walls. Afterward, the villagers gradually left, and by 1921, the village was officially removed from Belgium's administrative records. Only legend remains. But recently, a string of mysterious tourist deaths has drawn attention back to the forgotten village. And the story begins with a woman named Amelia Kingston. Amelia Kingston was a postgraduate student in architectural history from England. Since childhood, she was obsessed with ancient buildings and the secrets they held. She was a member of an online community of dark tourists, people who sought out places that were cursed, haunted, or erased from maps. One day, she received a private invitation from a secretive tour operator called the Vanishing Atlas, promising access to a site no longer bound by time or geography. With no hesitation, Amelia signed up. She wasn't alone. 3 others joined the tour: James Hunter, a Canadian adventure vlogger chasing viral fame, Irene Castillo, a Spanish woman obsessed with esoteric rituals and occultism, and Luc Moreau, a quiet Belgian man assigned as their local guide. They met at a nondescript rural station, the exact location kept secret until the last minute. From there, they traveled in an old, creaky vehicle only used once a month. As they neared the village, autumn fog thickened around them, swallowing the path. There was no signal, no signs of life. Only the crunch of their boots and the hiss of wind remained. Something about the place wasn't dead, but waiting. At the village center, they stopped near what used to be a public square. Crumbling stone houses stood like rotting teeth in a mouth too old to chew. The air smelled of mold, wet wood, and a faint trace of burning incense. But it was the chapel that drew their full attention. Unlike the ruins, the church looked almost preserved, strangely intact for a structure abandoned over a century. Its stone walls were smooth, kissed only by a thin veil of moss. A large iron door guarded the entrance, chained tightly. Curiously, no rust marred the lock or hinges. No birds, no spiders. No sign of life, or death. Amelia noted how the building should have collapsed by now, yet it looked as if someone had been caring for it. Luke warned them not to enter for safety reasons, though his voice hinted at something deeper. James was already filming, building a narrative for his followers. Irene stood silently by a cracked angel statue in front of the chapel, whispering to herself. She claimed to sense something familiar. After that, the air changed. The cold deepened without any drop in temperature. From the bell tower came a faint metallic chime. No one touched the bell. And yet it rang, clear, deliberate, like a signal. As twilight darkened the village, a figure appeared, someone none of them expected. An old woman, wrapped in layers of faded wool, emerged from the shadows of a ruined house. She didn't look like a tourist, nor a relic of modern life. Her wrinkled face was sharp and sunken, her white hair braided neatly. Her eyes carried the weight of centuries. She approached slowly, her steps unsure yet unwavering, until she stood a few feet from the chapel's gate. Without a word, she pointed toward the church and shook her head. Her gesture was clear, they should not be there. She scanned each of their faces, then turned and walked away, vanishing into the ruins as if swallowed by the land. Luke said she occasionally appeared each autumn, never speaking more than a few words. He called her a keeper of old customs. But that night, no one slept peacefully. Every groan from the wooden floor, every gust of wind against the shutters felt like something watching, waiting from beyond the veil. They stayed in an old two-story wooden house near the village's edge, supposedly the former home of the chapel's priest. Despite its age, the house was suspiciously intact. No dust on the furniture, no spiderwebs in the corners. It felt recently cleaned, disturbingly so. As darkness fell, the cold seeped through the walls despite the fireplace burning brightly. Amelia, in the upstairs bedroom, began noticing strange reflections in the wall mirror. Small shapes darting across the glass, too fast to be real, too solid to be tricks of the mind. She tried to dismiss it as exhaustion. Downstairs, James was busy editing his footage, excited for the ghost content. Irene lit candles in each room, calling it a spiritual safeguard passed down from her childhood. Luke remained in the dining room, staring blankly out the window into the thick fog. At exactly 2 a.m., a soft bell chime echoed from the direction of the chapel. 3 times. Faint, but unmistakable. Everyone awoke. No one had left the house. The iron lock on the chapel remained untouched. But still, the bell had rung. And now, an unspoken question lingered between them: who, or what, was welcoming them tonight? At sunrise, the group stepped outside, hoping daylight would bring clarity. Instead, it only raised more questions. The fog had cleared slightly, revealing more of the village's decaying structures. But something unnatural had appeared overnight. Footprints. Dozens of them. Bare human feet, small, narrow, and leading in strange, circular patterns around the chapel. Some vanished near the stone wall only to reappear on the opposite side, as if phasing through solid matter. Amelia studied them closely. The prints weren't fresh. They were embedded into the frost, yet no frost had fallen, only a chilling breeze had blown through. It was physically impossible. James, more thrilled than afraid, captured it all on camera, convinced it would bring him millions of views. But Irene was different. She looked pale, lips murmuring beneath her breath. She insisted they perform a ritual to seal what walks between worlds. Luke said nothing. But his silence grew heavier by the hour, like someone burying a memory too dangerous to voice. Then, someone noticed something else. A single footprint led from the chapel to the doorstep of the house where they slept. Just one. As if whatever it was had come to check on them. Later that afternoon, James reviewed his footage from the previous night. What he found disturbed him deeply, so much that, for the first time, he stopped smiling. In one video, shot as he stood near the chapel, a figure appeared behind him, tall, robed in black, and seemingly emerging from the shadows. It stayed only for a few frames, motionless, just before the bell rang. James swore no one was behind him at the time. Even worse, the timestamps on his files were corrupted. Every clip taken after 10 p.m. had distorted time codes. Some said 1904, others 2067. None of it made sense. He played an audio clip captured while everyone slept. There was breathing, long, raspy, uneven. Then, a voice in perfect Latin whispered a prayer Amelia recognized. A forbidden chant tied to excommunication rituals, meant to sever souls from the mortal realm. Suddenly, James's camera powered off and refused to restart. Its battery had been fully charged minutes before. Panic crept in. Not loud or obvious, but quiet and crawling, like water rising inside a locked room. Irene insisted they relight the candles. Not for warmth, but protection. She placed one in every corner, tracing symbols in ash she carried in a leather pouch. Amelia watched closely as Irene lit each one. But in the hallway, something happened that froze her blood. One candle, once lit, began to burn in reverse. Its wax grew taller, flame shrinking inward until it vanished completely, leaving a hardened, untouched candle as if time rewound. In the reflection of a dusty window, Amelia saw not one but two of her. The other stood still, not blinking, mouth agape. James suddenly shouted from upstairs. They ran up and found him in the attic, white as bone, staring at a cracked mirror embedded in the wall. It wasn't there before. The mirror reflected all of them, but not accurately. In the glass, they stood closer to the chapel, dressed in black robes. Behind them stood rows of silent, eyeless figures, their mouths open in a scream they never released. Then the mirror shattered, without touch, without wind. A deep, low sound, almost a sigh, filled the attic, and every candle in the house extinguished at once. By dusk, they decided to leave. Luke finally spoke. "We were never supposed to stay overnight." His voice trembled, eyes fixed on the chapel. They rushed to the car, but it refused to start. No lights, no ignition. It was as if it had been drained of life. James tried to use his satellite phone, no signal, no battery, even though it was untouched. Luke finally confessed. He had lied. This was no sanctioned tour. The vanishing atlas was a front. It hadn't operated since 1999 after multiple disappearances. Luke had come back only because he felt called. But now, he regretted everything. They had one option left: reach the chapel and find the sealed passage beneath it. According to Luke, there was a crypt underneath, the origin of the church's curse. It had to be destroyed. As they approached, Amelia noticed something impossible. The iron door was slightly ajar. No chains. No lock. And yet none of them had opened it. The prints on the ground were fresh, bare feet again. This time leading into the church. Inside, the air shifted. Not cold, but wrong. It didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. Like something ancient and aware had been waiting. The walls pulsed slightly, as if the stone itself breathed in rhythm with their steps. The altar had been restored. Candles lit themselves along the pews, one by one. On the altar, a chalice stood filled with thick, dark liquid. Blood or something older. Above the altar was a painting of the original congregation, but their faces had changed. Now, they bore the features of Amelia, James, Irene, and Luke. As they moved deeper, the floorboards groaned, not from weight, but resistance. Something beneath stirred, rising. The crypt door burst open with a sound like splitting bone. From the darkness, a figure emerged, dressed in priestly robes but faceless. No eyes, no mouth. Around them, whispers grew. Latin prayers. Screams folded into song. The congregation of the dead was returning, pulled by the presence of the living. Then the chapel doors slammed shut. The windows sealed with frost. The candles reversed, time buckled, and all four screamed without a sound as the chapel swallowed them, bending space around them like lungs exhaling sin. And outside, the village stood still again. Empty. Quiet. Until next time. Back at the house, the footage was gone. All memory cards, empty. The hard drive James carried in his backpack. Corrupted. Even his cloud backup had reverted to old vacation videos from months ago, as if the last 48 hours had never existed. But something had been recorded. Not by them, by something else. On Amelia's phone, a file had appeared. One she didn't take. It was titled in Flemish, "Laat ze niet gaan, don't let them leave." The clip showed them, sleeping in the cottage. The footage was filmed from the ceiling, impossible unless someone, or something, was crawling across the rafters. They watched in silence as their own bodies twisted in sleep. Irene's lips moved in ritualistic murmurs. James convulsed. Luke whispered to someone unseen. Amelia smiled in her sleep, eyes wide open, pupils full black. Then, the file ended with a sharp sound, like a throat being cleared inches from the microphone. And the phone shut off. Permanently. Luke, desperate for answers, unfolded his old map again. The village should not have existed. On satellite images, nothing was visible, just fields and ruins. But the paper map, now wet and aged unnaturally, showed new ink lines. A second chapel had appeared, deeper in the forest, connected by a dotted trail. But it wasn't drawn in pen, it looked etched, like carved with bone. The name of the new location had no translation, only symbols. Triangles stacked vertically. Circles with lines through them. Amelia believed they resembled alchemical sigils, ones used in necromancy and soul binding. The map also showed their car, drawn in the corner, crossed out with red ink. Beside it, 4 stick figures. 3 were crossed out. 1 remained whole. The figure had long hair and held a flame. Irene stopped speaking altogether. She sat in a chair by the window, staring at the chapel. 4 hours. Her breathing slowed until it didn't match normal rhythm. She no longer blinked. At midnight, she stood and walked outside barefoot into the frost. No one dared follow her, not even Luke, who now gripped his crucifix like a lifeline. When she returned, she brought something with her. Not physical, but present. Amelia felt it immediately. Like a cold hand resting on her chest. Irene's shadow, cast by candlelight, no longer matched her movement. It lagged. Then twitched forward like a puppet. She sat down, tilted her head, and finally whispered, "He chose." James asked who. She didn't respond. She only smiled. And her teeth were wrong. They left at dawn. No farewells. Just a sprint through fog to reach the road. To their shock, the path back to civilization was now smooth, like it had always been maintained. Their car waited where they left it, clean and untouched. Too clean. As if it had never been driven into the forest. The moment they passed the edge of the village, everything changed. The cold vanished. Trees grew vibrant. No mist. No rot. No ruins. Looking back, there was nothing. No chapel. No graveyard. No buildings. Only an endless meadow. James checked his GPS. They were never where they thought they were. The coordinates placed them 50 kilometers south of their last known point. Amelia turned on the radio. Static. Then a hymn played, a familiar Latin chant. The same one from the church. Irene whispered it under her breath, as if reciting something long buried in her bloodline. Back in the city, they went separate ways, promising never to speak of it again. James deleted his channel. Irene vanished from all group chats. Luke abandoned his apartment, leaving only his map and a single note, "The door opens again in winter." Amelia tried to forget. But she couldn't. The dreams came nightly, cold breath in her ear, voices calling her in old languages. The image of the chapel never faded from her memory. One evening, while sorting through her camera bag, she found something she didn't pack. A key. Large, iron, and marked with the chapel's symbol. It pulsed with warmth. Her phone buzzed. A new email. No sender. No subject. Just one line. "You left something behind." Below it, a photo. Her. Standing at the altar. Smiling. But she had never taken that photo. She was sure of it. Wasn't she? That was our story for tonight. Do you think it's just an ordinary tale, or is there something more to it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next stories. See you if you still dare to watch next time.